Earlier this year I moved to the United Kingdom and I shipped my dog to the UK. I had to follow the UK pet travel scheme to make sure that she came into the country legally and that we were abiding by all of the rules and regulations that come with it. To make sure that you are applying from a listed or unlisted country, we highly recommend that you check out the government website, and we'll detail that information here. Thank you.
It's worth mentioning that if you are applying from a listed country, the process of shipping a pet to the UK is probably a little bit easier than from an unlisted country. Chelsea applied from a listed country, so what did you have to do?
So in order to get her here, the first thing I did was I made an appointment with our veterinarian to discuss our plan of action. We talked about how we should get her to the UK, basically kind of giving him a heads up that we were planning on moving so that he was prepared just as much as we were prepared. He is a veterinarian that Apple and I have seen her whole life. I used to work with him as well. So I was very familiar with his experience. So because he was a known and trusted veterinarian and he sent dogs abroad to Europe before, I knew that when we made our appointment with him to start planning out getting Apple to the UK, that it wasn't going to be foreign to him. After discussing with our veterinarian our plan of action, we really just had to sit and wait because unfortunately with the pet travel scheme and how everything works with the international health certificates, we couldn't really do much until closer to the end date or closer to the time that we were hoping to travel. So while working with our veterinarian and being from a listed country, the first thing we wanted to check was that Apple had the appropriate European ISO microchip. Back in 2009 when Apple was a little baby puppy, her veterinarian implanted 2 microchips. They implanted an American microchip as well as a ISO European microchip. They don't do this anymore, so you do want to check that the microchip that is implanted on your pet is a European ISO microchip and not just an American one. The digits on an American microchip are less than the European one, so there is a difference between them when they're scanned. Your veterinarian will know exactly which microchip to look for when scanning. After making sure that Apple had the appropriate microchip and that it can be located, because sometimes the microchips kind of float off into outer space and time, we found that it was quick to locate, easy to find every time she was scanned. We then made sure that her rabies vaccine was administered after her ISO microchip was implanted. Now because she's had this microchip implanted since she was a puppy, we really didn't have any difficulty with this because she's been up to date on her rabies ever since she was a baby, and the ISO microchip came first, so we were good. But for those of you who need to get a ISO microchip implanted, make sure that the microchip is administered first prior to having a rabies vaccine. If the rabies vaccine comes before the ISO microchip implantation, then that means that the rabies vaccination is considered no good. So you must microchip the dog with a European ISO microchip and then administer a new rabies vaccine. So if your rabies vaccine is good and your microchip is good, you want to make sure that you have 2 certificates and that your veterinarian signs and dates each form, and you guys complete together a European International Health Certificate. For me, being a US applicant, I needed to send off this European Health Certificate as well as the Certificate of Rabies and Microchip Implantation to the USDA to be certified. When you start this European International Health Certificate, do realize that this is like a ticking time bomb. You have 10 days to complete this process, so it's very, very time sensitive. So I made sure that when I sent off this packet of information to the USDA to be certified, that I did it with priority or expedited service to get it there and back really soon. Literally the same day that we had started the International Health Certificate, I took all of the documents and mailed them off and received them back, certified about 2 days later. No earlier than 5 days prior to travel, but no less than 24 hours before the dog or cat flies out, they need to have a deworming administration. They need to be treated for worming, and then after that's recorded on your International Health Certificate, you should be good to go with that. We contacted a pet travel agency in British Columbia to help send Apple over to the UK. So they had a little bit of their own requirements that we needed to fill out, like a pet personality profile, measurements for her crate, and then of course filling out their legal documents. But the most important thing was making sure that our certificates were certified, signed off by the veterinarian, and good to go. They also added onto our requirements that Apple had a fit to fly certificate. Unfortunately, my veterinarian didn't really know what a fit to fly certificate was, because this has never been something that's been asked of him before, and it was kind of frustrating. We just had him fill out a regular Washington State health certificate, marked off that it was international and that she was flying by air, and in the notes section after filling this out, he wrote specifically fit to fly, and that fulfilled the fit to fly requirements of our pet travel agency.
Yeah.
And then after we had all of our information sent into the pet travel agency, I needed to confirm that I was coming to the UK within 5 days of Apple, my dog, so that there wouldn't be any duty or taxes on her.
Right, so something important to know about taking a pet to the UK is that A, they must fly in cargo. This is a requirement that the UK impose, and for most pets it's not a cargo hold of a passenger flight. It is a cargo hold on a cargo flight.
Right.
And what that means is, A, booking it's a little bit more tricky, because you either can contact the airline directly, but you will have to deal with their cargo department, which works a little differently to a regular passenger airline, or you can go through, as we did, a pet travel agency.
Yes.
And they will take care of all of that for you. However, because that is a cargo flight and there's no option to ride on that same flight, you must confirm as well that your flight will arrive within 5 days of that cargo flight. Otherwise, the UK will class it as a sale or transfer of ownership of that pet, and there'll be extra taxes and duties to pay on top of it. Even if you have a partner in the UK who is picking the pet up, your flight must still arrive within that 5 day time frame of your pet's arrival.
Yeah, so it's really important that when you are working with a pet travel agency or you are contacting the UK, JCS Livestock usually do help out with checking your pets through the pet reception center at Heathrow. They do need to see your itinerary of you arriving into the UK in order to avoid this fee. You're going to need to fill out the C5 form, which we'll link here, and this will need to be completed in order to bring your pet into the country, as well as being paired with the rest of your documents. So I provided my flight itinerary to the pet travel agency, and we were able to book our flight within 2 weeks before the departure. Got her health certificate taken care of within the last 10 days. Got her deworming in the last 5 after receiving our certified documents back. And then came the time for purchasing a crate. We made sure that the crate was not only big enough for her to stand up straight and to turn around completely in, but we also bought a crate that was the next size up from that fit to ensure that for an international flight that she would be comfortable. We fitted that with her favorite blankets from home and a squeaky toy. I bought her a water bottle that attaches to the kennel door, but the pet travel agency wanted to use their own, so they gave me mine back. But do provide that just in case your pet travel agency doesn't, and make sure that your pet has all of the things that they need to feel comfortable. Because this is an international flight, our pet agency really, really, really discouraged the use of any kind of sedative to make sure that your pet didn't dehydrate itself during the flight. Just because it's such a long flight that they're worried that with the air pressures and the cold, it doesn't have any catastrophic effect on your pet. Now obviously if you have a pet that gets really, really, really stressed out and your veterinarian thinks that this is for the better of their health, then yeah, certainly things can be arranged, but do make sure that you talk to your pet travel agency and your veterinarian before making this decision. All natural remedies like box rescue remedy and maybe a low dose of Benadryl can be administered to help reduce the anxiety, but anything prescription strength needs permission first.
Yeah, and a pet travel agency can refuse to take your pet on and fly them on that cargo flight if they're under a sedative, which they haven't allowed.
Yeah.
So if you go behind their back or if you sedate your pet and the travel agency aren't aware of it, they may refuse to fly your pet.
So let's fast forward here. After we had everything approved, ready to go, flights booked for Apple and myself, we were then preparing for her to fly out from Vancouver, BC to London Heathrow. Because our pet travel agency took care of everything with JCS Livestock, that meant that our fees that were going to be paid to them for taking care of her on the other side were already paid for. Some pet travel agencies don't do this, so make sure that you ask them when your pet gets to the other side or pet gets to the UK if this service fee that you're paying to the pet travel agency covers any of the fees that are going to come up from the UK.
Right. Otherwise, once you arrive in the UK and go to pick up your pet from the JCS Livestock Centre, sometimes called the ARC as well, there might be extra fees to pay at the door.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise. So just to make sure you don't have that, do ask. But after Apple was flown from Vancouver, we made sure it was a one-way flight straight from point A to point B, no layovers. She arrived in Heathrow and JCS Livestock staff were the ones who took her through her examination, went through her records and determined whether or not she was deemed healthy and acceptable to enter the UK. So sometimes for some pets it can take several hours to complete this process, so do be wary that just because they're scheduled to arrive at a certain time doesn't mean that they're going to receive entry clearance to come out right away. You will be informed when they are ready if they have the correct contact details on hand. But make sure that if you, the owner, are not going to be present to pick up your pet, that you have a registered handler with the JCS Livestock crew or at ARC to have the permission to pick up this pet.
Yeah, and make sure that that person knows the flight number of the flight that your pet was on. They will ask for this usually as it helps them locate their pets. They deal with hundreds of pets a day and locating one pet for them is sometimes difficult. So if you have the flight number of the flight that your pet was on, it does help speed up the process of collecting your pet.
Yeah. All in all, it is a bit of a rush. The whole experience is a bit time consuming and stressful because you're shipping off an animal who doesn't quite understand what's going on. So again, talk to a professional if you feel that your dog or cat needs a sedative in order to help make the flight more stress-free or just more chilled and relaxed. But do keep in mind that this hopefully is a one-time thing and that they'll never have to go through this ever again. If you go through the right pet travel agency, it really shouldn't be too hard to put all of this information together. Feel free to leave a comment in the box below. Please tell us and share your experiences if you've done this successfully yourself, or feel free to leave a question. We'd be more than happy to try and help you as best we can. Like this video if you enjoyed what you watched, and subscribe to continue to watch more videos about our visa experience, life in the UK, and British things. Bye!
Bye!